You've heard a lot about how social media is ruining everything, and it was maybe better if it had never existed. I don't believe that. And I don't think you will either when we get a chance to talk about the facts of social media and the bright side for our future. Hi, I'm Warren Whitlock. This is Emerging Technology with Warren Whitlock. And yeah, I named the show so that you'd know it was me. You can find me here on a YouTube channel or the Spotify link or Apple Podcast or anywhere you find podcasts. But today you found me, and I'm so glad you did. Let's talk a little bit about social media. I know a little bit about this. I started using social media before anything really happened, before we even started calling it social media. And then by 2007, I was using Twitter and learning a lot about it and making connection and actually improving my business and reputation online. And I found it to be a great thing. At first, I thought it was a silly tool where I could put a bunch of links and try to build my reputation and maybe get some links and some SEO value and things like that. And then by the time I started writing the book, I realized in fact, we wrote the book because we realized that this was something entirely different. Those short messages that we were sending back and forth really did well. I myself, back in the 90s, heard about SMS message service, which means short message service. It's a part of the whole phone system and different than what we get on a smartphone today. The short messages could be sent back and forth to people. And my first reaction to it is I have a telephone. I work in an office with a cordless telephone and walk around, manage my people, check on operations, talk to customers. I've always got a phone on me. I'm constantly on the phone. Why would I ever want to send somebody a text message? I was wrong. A few years later, I found out about it with Twitter, and what do you know? Pretty soon I was writing a book about it. That was early 2008, we wrote the book, and we looked at the implications of what was changing about people being connected all the time. Fast forward a lot longer, and now have a lot. Boy, I can't turn on the podcast feed without getting something about somebody's telling us how all our children are ruined by using smartphones before a certain age. And you know what? I think there's something to that. I think what we ought to be doing is using social media to inform some people about what makes some good parenting. That would be good. Same with AI, that I keep hearing that guy's going to ruin everything. What are we going to do when we all are stuck in our little cocoon and never talk to anybody and we're just lonely? And that leads to all sorts of horrible things. So I'm not here to address the potential problems with a depressed person or someone that feels lonely or feels like they can't keep up with their peers or kids not getting enough sunshine. Those are all issues that in modern society we should address and take care of. But I want to talk about the overall positive good that social media has and how you might be able to add to that good and use it for yourself, whether or not that's a business outcome, which is usually what I talk about, or any other kind of outcome. So let's get started. The first thing that I learned about what social media was, we started using Twitter a lot. And by that time, I was using Facebook. I'd been on MySpace, LinkedIn, things before that, the Rise social network, bulletin boards I started using in the 80s and used text messages to communicate. And I got hooked fast. I used it a lot. The other thing was it was making me money because I started selling things. I used it for the kind of communication I wanted. I helped a whole lot of people with their computer problems online. They'd get a computer, and so people would ask questions, and I'd answer the questions. And that led to when I did that, my sales would go up. And so there got to be a point by, say, the mid 90s where I was very busy answering questions of people that had requested support because we hadn't set up some of the systems that modern companies use to handle customer support, live chat, those kind of things. But I would find that in my inbox, if I started answering those questions, if somebody says, my printer just stopped printing, and I had a checklist that I'd go through, and I share that checklist with people. And then at the bottom of the email was a phone number in case they needed any more help. And some people with truly dead printers or needing additional equipment trusted what we were saying, and we did business with them. We made a communication person to person, and I think that's what made the difference. So I was obsessed with this. That I like the idea of database marketing, which means that's a term I learned in the 1980s, which was if you maintain your mailing list or group of people that are interested in what you're doing and you communicate with them, they're going to like the communication. The key that we sometimes forget when we hear about how to sell more or something like that is that it becomes all mechanical and automated, and it loses the people touch. Yeah, that's bad. If I send out a mass email, I've sent out mass emails to 2, 3 million people in a day, and every one of those has a reply address. If somebody hits reply, ask a question, someone answers it. Boy, when there was the bigger ones, we had a staff of people doing that, and then I answered some of the questions they couldn't answer. But we always try to resolve every issue that we could. We're human. We didn't do it all the time. You can write to me today, and I may or may not see it. But in most cases, if I see that a genuine single individual is writing to me on any platform, I do everything I can to answer that. Problem today is a whole lot of people have automated that and automated what we used to call spam, sending a message, sending another message. Did you see this? This is the last time I'm going to write you. If you got a program like that to try to communicate, that's not communicating with people. That's communicating with the bot. And I didn't answer the first one because I could tell it was a bot sending me a message. And the same with the second and the third. And if you keep doing that, I'm going to mark you as spam and forget about you. The same thing goes on with how we use social media. I've had my total followings are nearly 1 million in various places online. And I try to get a hold of those people. This is me personally. The other story was a company. And when somebody tries to connect with me and ask me a question, I want to help them. I found even back from those early days of answering emails that if I help people, it's going to turn out good for me. And if I'm going to do well, what does it matter that I answer a few extra questions of somebody that I can never actually help? One of the things I can do is let them know someone on the other end cares. And I suppose that does help some people. There's so many studies and examples of things going well. The one of my favorites was an example of a couple. The man worked in a bakery, got up at 2 a.m. every day, went to the bakery, baked baked the bread and the baked goods, and I like to think cookies are in there someplace, and pies. But anyway, and he's busy doing that, and around about 6:30 he takes a break and checks for his messages to see that his wife has left him a message when she wakes up at time to get up and send the kids off to school. Then she goes off to work and probably gets home so late that he's already asleep. So many days they hardly see each other, maybe sleeping in the same bed at the same time, but that's not much of a conversation if one person's snoring. and, and so their daily connection was the few messages they were able to send. And in the early days, we heard a lot of that, of people who, by no other means to be able to talk to somebody, were able to get a message out and say, this is what's going on. We heard the story of the revolutions happening that was called it actually was called the Twitter Revolution, which was also the name of my book, and why if you search for me Twitter Revolution on a search, I'm not likely to come up because that other topic got quite famous a couple years after we published the book. But what happened was people were organizing. There was one great story about an American who refused to leave his translator in Cairo while they were trying to arrest his companion, the translator. And he went with, and that meant he was going to be placed in jail. He got a tweet out that said jail or one word like that. I believe the word was jail. And his team, his people, knew what to do because they got that message. I'm sure you've seen that plot used in TV and movies that people can communicate that way, or they always have to take it into account. It's an interesting thing that after the police procedural shows started using that tactic and being able to look something up on the phone while they're in check to see if something's true when they're investigating and asking questions in their investigation and check and see if whether or not what you said was true. Then they had to start making a plot where they'd lose communication. It seems like all those cameras to watch for the safety cameras to watch for people intruders and whatnot, they all are off, turned off, or don't work in every TV show about that. That's just a plot trick. What really happens is a lot of time you can see what's going on because of that. You can share when you're lonely, when you're apart. And then in some very specific examples, might not be the best thing to have 5-year-olds communicating with each other by text. I think I pretty well go with 5-year-olds is a problem. We'll get to children in a minute, but how about seniors? I know people that are, because I'm getting up there myself, relatives, people I know who stopped talking. In fact, it's a common complaint among us baby boomers and up that we've got grandchildren and children that we don't talk to except for by text, and you can't just pick up the phone and call. That's the complaint. But what it really means is something that didn't happen when we were young. We get to talk to our loved ones on a fairly regular basis. When I was a kid in my 20s, I could go for months without talking to my parents. It was a long distance phone call. It usually was a special event. I'd call my mother on Mother's Day. We'd call on other holidays and didn't just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Dad, how's it hanging?" Today, I talk to the kids that'll return my calls, I talk to on a regular basis, and my friends, the same thing. I don't talk to any business associate or friend without sending a text first. I want to, as a nostalgia, I might want to complain about that. But I know that if I am in trouble and I need to reach out and get some people, it may not be jail that I'm sending to somebody, but it could be, how's it going? And the next thing I know, I'm in a conversation. Quite often it gets to be a phone call and it's hours long. Just talked to my brother for over 2 hours because it was his birthday and I thought I got a call. And the funny thing is, as we thought about it, realized that the number of times I dial a phone and it's not a doctor's office or government office where they only take phone calls, there's still some of those out there, especially if they're dealing with people over 65, that they somehow think we don't know how to use text and email. But I decided not to send my brother a text for his birthday, called him up, and I don't know if he's lonely. I do know that he's had changes. He's a widower. He's just retired. Yeah, maybe he wants to talk to me. I get every time I do something like that, I realize the number of times I've met up with people who maybe they have somebody come by to bring food, it doesn't talk to them. Maybe they go out and attend an activity, a church or whatever, and then you see them there and you think they're just fine. And you find out that they go days without talking to anybody. The best thing you can do for those people is give them communications. And social media has just amped that up. I know that when my kids were in their 20s, I talked to all of them every day. And that's faded out over time. Some of them don't want to talk every day. And I would say all of them don't want to talk every time dad thinks about it, but they do communicate and you find out what's going on. There's even people, distant relatives I can check up on. I can see what they're doing. We all like it when the pictures are posted and those types of things. Now, let's talk about some of the positive things you can do to make your social media use and others better. I'm going to say don't shut down your social media account, but do take a look at budgeting your time when you use social media. Instead of looking and seeing what dastardly thing some public figure may or may not have done, or what the other guys did that makes your side mad about it, or whatever issue you're following, instead of saying, hey, that's a nice meme, let me share it. Which, by the way, if you want to do that, you're entitled. I'm not against restricting your speech at all. But maybe take a look at, who are those relatives that I haven't talked to? Who are the friends I've lost track of? Can I go out or reach back and talk to somebody from 10, 20 years ago? Some people will say, no, there's that you've gone separate ways. You're not friends anymore. You maybe don't need to ever talk to them again. I disagree. Every time I've talked to somebody where it's been 30 years since I talked to them, it's been an enjoyable conversation. I feel bad that I haven't called, but of course they haven't either. And so you get past that and you get in to have a conversation. People that I was fighting with and then decided I better reach out to them and see whether there's lingering anger or whatever it is. Thanks to social media, I can do that and nobody's going to slap me or hit me in the nose, at least not until I go see them physically. But how would I know if I haven't talked to them at all? So trying to leave a message or do something there. One thing I've learned is, heard many stories about somebody say, they stopped answering my messages, they must hate me. That's not necessarily true. All of us get busy, get do something else, or maybe have a bit of a grudge. And even after that's long faded, they not sure what to do to reconnect. I'm not sure what to do, but find some people and do that. I actually have done that on my large accounts, Twitter, and found people that I haven't talked to in some time. And then I suggest that it's a feature they should put in. Go and find everybody that I talked to 3 times in a year, but I haven't talked to in the last year, and make me a list of those. And boy, I could work through them and one by one talk to them. I do have in my contact manager CRM Nimble, you can find my distributed conversations at distributedconversations.com, on my YouTube channel. The video of those are posted or whatever. Just have one with John Ferrara of nimble.com. And I've got that set up so that it will tell me how long it's been since last contact. It's something we do in sales quite often, but I do it with my personal, with everybody I have in the contact database. A lot of my business relationship are not me trying to sell something to somebody or somebody trying to sell something to me, but I maintain those relationships. Somebody who was your regular vendor at one job may become your best friend after you both change jobs, or it may switch and you're selling to them. The world is changing very fast. Keep up with the personal relationship. By the way, the shortcut to telling you what happened in that episode, we came up with one thing that'll make it so that AI is not going to take your job, and we told you about that. That one thing is person to person relationships. So that's the most positive thing you can do. The other things you can do is support something that is a positive. There was one time I found out about a guy in Australia who had just moved, I think, to Sydney, and didn't have any friends. So he made up a cardboard sign that said free hugs and went and stood in a busy area. And once in a while, somebody would stop and give him a hug. One person had given him a hug. People saw the sign, saw what was going on, and said, "Oh, let's go give this guy a hug." And they made a video of it. It was very heartwarming to watch that. I shared that with others, and I started thinking I can use that. I started going through the people who left a comment on a video. Try it. Whether this is a podcast or a video cast or wherever you're seeing us, leave me a comment. I'm going to try to find them and answer them in every case. It's a lot of distribution channels. I missed some of them, or it may take me 2 months. But my intent is every day I check for sign of somebody leaving comments or replying to my social media messages. And I do whatever I can to engage them. And once I accepted that I was going to be the last person talking in most of those conversations, which sometimes the last comment is a heart emoji, but to react to every one of them and let people know. Also, I came up with the idea is if I've got time to read something online, I've got time to leave a comment. But I found that I didn't want to leave a comment telling them where they were wrong. I do that. We all do. But I wanted to leave a comment supporting them, thanking them for sharing the information on the topic I was reading about. I learned something from reading your post. Tell them what that is and say, thank you, keep doing it. And you do that, you make it a unique message and you make it a line or two, and you find out that it doesn't really change how much time you spend online to go ahead and leave 5 or 10 comments like that in a day. And it used to be on blogs, I was doing it all the time, starting to do it more on YouTube videos right now. And we'll continue to do that definitely on Twitter. I find people that like and reply and retweet my stuff, and I will just go find their profile, find something good on there, leave a comment or retweet it or whatever. I find most of my activity in social media today is trying to amplify somebody else's work. That builds relationships and it feels really good. Rather than finding where's the next place to protest or tell the world how mad you are, try looking for someplace to tell the world how good something is. And that will definitely help us all. And also, we have this tendency to start scrolling through things, watching the short videos, just fill in here a little bit like that. Our attention span goes down, and we're just looking at stuff and getting led into things that we really know better than to pay any attention to. Whether that's your 34th cat on a skateboard or it's something political or whatever, you're going down, they call it, it can be called a deep dive if you're doing research, or it can be called a detour into the woods if you're doing something or down a hole if you are just watching whatever they put for you next. Break the algorithm. uh, Stop looking at that and go look at something positive, or look for something that takes a little bit more engagement. I found that my YouTube video viewing habits has been I watch fewer videos and watch longer videos and then try to engage. Maybe it's an author talking about their book. I go look up the book, maybe buy the book, maybe see if they have another podcast, find out more about them, leave comments, let them know I exist. Do they answer? Nah, not all the time, but I know I'm doing the right thing and it helps my brain. Often now I use Claude.ai and or whatever LLM model of AI I can get, and then have a bit of a conversation with it and find out some more information. And then I think about who do I know that could benefit from knowing the information, especially if it's positive. The more positive, the more I want to share it. So, in conclusion, it's something we have to worry about for kids. We have to worry about how they're wiring their brains. But we're all having our brains rewired all the time. We're not going to ever live in an age that has no AI, no social media, and all the technology gets put away. I heard someone say last night, wouldn't it be a good thing if we could have a 6-month moratorium on everything online? And it might be that theoretically that's a nifty idea that we could all go to the park and meet with friends and take more vacations with the family and all sorts of things, travel, all good things. But no one is going to mandate that. We're not going to coordinate that. Even if we try to tell kids don't use the phones at all, they've all learned how to use them. They're going to want to use them. It's better to teach them what to do about that. There are certain sites you need to avoid entirely, and other ones that can cause you problems. If you've got a child in your home that is looking at pictures on Instagram and how good life is for everybody else, but it's not that good for me, maybe have a discussion about that. Talk about that. If you take away the phone, they're going to figure out another way to see the same thing. Do your best to do that, and realize the kids growing up today are going to be alive in an era where everybody has instant access to everything and unlimited intelligence to learn about anything. They're going to be smarter, have better resources. And if we go ahead and say there's reasons why you need to get better at language, about sitting silently in your thoughts, and meditation, prayer, anything, good manners when you're with people, to shut off the phones. There's all those things can be learned, as well as learning that the device is a great way to have an instant babysitter. And yes, I know I've seen kids and grandkids do this. Yes, very young, but I don't worry so much about it because I know that 20 years from now, they're going to be adults living in an era with so much more technology than we're even dreaming of right now. Do good parenting. In fact, if you're worried about how to do a better job of it, try asking. I asked this morning to put an outline together what I was talking, some thoughts and some positive examples of using social media. And sure enough, the Claude responded. If I'd have said, "Are there problems with social media?" it would have responded as well because I know they're getting a lot of press right now. Technology is not positive or negative. There's no morality in the technology itself. It will be used just like a sword or a gun, anything, or a pen, anything that is invented, you can use for both good and bad. And I invite you to look for ways to use social media and all the other emerging technologies to make life better, to communicate better with one-on-one relationships. And by all means, don't forget to put it all away and have personal relationships offline. That of course, if my predictions come true or the trends that I follow come true, can't say anything's an exact prediction. If the trends I'm following go true at all, we're going to live in an era of abundance without the need to be workaholics or slaves to our devices or anything like that. We're going to be able to spend more time with loved ones. We're going to be able to help more people caring one on one, to visit the sick and the lonely and the elderly. Please come visit me, kids. And all those good things that we say social media is killing, we'll actually be able to use all these technologies to enhance those relationships. And I hope you do. Till next time, this is Warren Whitlock. This is Emerging Technology with Warren Whitlock. Give me a like and subscribe and a comment and tell me where I'm wrong. I'd love to have the discussion.